The air was thick with a palpable tension, far heavier than the humid summer night it cloaked. In the flickering glow of a single flickering street lamp, a small group of figures huddled together, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and defiance. They were young, barely more than children, certainly not prepared for the venomous hatred that now surged towards them. These were the New Mutants, and the mob advancing wasn't just angry, it was hunting. Shouts of freaks and monsters began to coalesce from the shapeless rumble, growing sharper, more insistent. A thrown rock shattered near their feet, sending splinters of concrete skittering across the pavement, and a desperate whimper escaped one of the youngest. It was in this precise, terrifying instant, when hope seemed a distant, naive concept, that an impossible shadow fell over the scene. Not a shadow of night, but a presence so immense, so overwhelmingly powerful, it seemed to warp the very air. High above, suspended silently, was Magneto. Now, to truly understand this moment, we must pause and consider the figure himself. Erik Lehnsherr, the Master of Magnetism, often perceived as a tyrannical adversary, a man whose grand ambition was to conquer humanity to secure mutant supremacy. He was planning wars, forging an army, shaping a new world order where Homo Superior reigned supreme. Yet, here he was, observing a raw, terrifying display of human bigotry against vulnerable mutant children. This was not part of his grand strategy. This was an unscripted, immediate crisis. As the first crude weapons, broken bottles, heavy bricks, even a crude torch, began to arc through the air towards the terrified New Mutants, Magneto moved. There was no hesitation, no calculation of strategic advantage, only a swift, almost primal instinct. With a barely perceptible shift in his stance, a wave of invisible force erupted from him. The airborne projectiles froze mid-flight, suspended as if caught in amber. Then, with a silent, devastating power, they were hurled back, not at the mob, but into the empty space just above their heads, crashing harmlessly against a brick wall. A gasp rippled through the crowd, quickly turning to a stunned silence. They looked up, saw the iconic helmet, the flowing cape, and felt the absolute, unyielding power emanating from this solitary figure. Magneto descended, slowly, gracefully, his boots barely touching the ground before he stood between the children and their tormentors. His posture was not one of a conqueror arriving, but of a shield, a bulwark. His voice, when it came, was not a roar, but a low, resonant pronouncement, filled with a cold fury that chilled the air more effectively than any winter storm. "These are children," he stated, the words hanging heavy. "Innocent beings, no different from your own, save for the destiny of their birth. And you would attack them, with the baseless hatred born of your own fear." The mob, for all its previous bravado, stood petrified. They were confronted not just by power, but an unwavering moral indignation. Magneto didn't need to brandish his might further. His mere presence, coupled with the silent demonstration of his power, was enough. The message was crystal clear. Cross this line, harm these children, and face an unimaginable reckoning. Slowly, reluctantly, the mob began to disperse, melting back into the shadows from which they had emerged, their angry whispers replaced by the shuffling of retreating feet. Magneto watched them go, his back still to the New Mutants. He didn't turn to offer comfort, nor did he bask in their gratitude. There was no grand speech about his vision for mutantkind, no recruitment drive. He simply stood there for a moment, a sentinel of silent, absolute protection. Then, with the briefest of glances over his shoulder, a look that held a flicker of something akin to paternal concern before it was masked by his usual stoicism, he ascended once more into the night, vanishing as swiftly as he had appeared. This act, simple in its execution, but profound in its implications, speaks volumes about the complex tapestry that is Magneto's character. He is a man hardened by suffering, convinced that only through absolute power can mutants ever truly be safe. His authoritarianism, his willingness to wage war, his often ruthless methods, they all stem from a deep-seated trauma, a foundational belief that humanity will inevitably turn on mutants, just as it did on his own people during the Holocaust. Yet, this moment with the New Mutants was not about strategic advantage or demonstrating power to a rival. It was about an immediate, urgent compassion. It was the swift, protective instinct of a lion defending its cubs, even if those cubs were not his own, even if he believed he must one day force them to accept his leadership. He saw vulnerable, innocent lives threatened by ignorant cruelty, and he acted without hesitation. This was the fundamental drive beneath all his ambitious plans, the safeguarding of innocent mutant lives from persecution. He believes his methods, however extreme, are the only way to prevent another genocide, another moment where young mutants are left defenseless against a fearful world. So, when we consider Magneto, it's vital to look beyond the often villainous exterior. His compassion, though channeled through a deeply flawed and often brutal ideology, is real. It's born from pain and fear, but it fuels an unwavering commitment to protect. He is a tyrant, yes, but one whose heart, in specific, profound moments, beats with an urgent compassion for those he seeks to shepherd, even if he must drag them to safety, kicking and screaming, into his envisioned utopia. It's a challenging paradox, a chilling but fascinating insight into a figure who defines the moral ambiguity of power. This story of Magneto and the New Mutants reminds us that even in the most formidable and seemingly unyielding figures, there can exist a tender, protective core, driven by deeply human, albeit distorted, motivations. We invite you to share your thoughts on this fascinating facet of Magneto's character. What other moments have you seen Magneto demonstrate this urgent compassion? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deeper dive, consider subscribing for more explorations into the complex worlds of our favorite characters. A gentle, reflective musical outro.